keep investors from hating startups and startup founders?
That means trust. We made this progress. We ran into a problem. We solved this problem.
There is such thing as collective synergy of your investors.
Don't leave the revenue for the last line.
2/3 of the startups are getting lost because of the discipline.
Asymmetric move. Anything that is clever, we invested $1 and we got back 20.
I'm sure it would be ready to write another check, just like every other investor. There's one topic, okay, there's many, but there's one I want to address next is trust between the startup founders and the investors. And this is something that has to be built over time. And we see that a lot of startup founders, they take it for granted and they think that investors exist only to invest money in them, which is true. But on the other hand, investors have to pick thoroughly whom they want to build these relations with. So I want to talk and ask you how to build that trust between the startup founder and investor and keep investors from hating startups and startup founders.
Let me begin very pragmatically. One of my friends, partners, and occasional co-investors in startups, not in Ukraine, but in the United States, ends the first meeting with, all I ask is just every month, send me an update, an honest, straightforward update. And in the majority of cases, he is disappointed. If you ask yourself why that doesn't happen, and for me, it happens in 90% of the cases, if I take all of my investments.
Which is, it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
Okay.
90% of the cases, it doesn't happen. Think of the 30-day update as a kind of strategic quality control. That means trust. People, when they do get around to the report, 2 months later, 3 months later, they write you 4 or 5 pages, okay? This assumes that we don't have dozens of others, reports that we have to read, not necessarily from startup companies, but from other investors. So, master the art of the one-page report. And the first line is about revenue. What was our revenue? What was the growth? What was it in the last 6 months or 9 months? What we expect it to be in the next 5 or 6 months? Because if I see that number, I actually don't have to read the report. That tells me 90% of the information I need. Now, why do people not want to put that number? Because so often, most of the time, it's not a good number. It's not how you build trust. It's not how you build honesty. If the news is bad, I got it. Tell me the news. That's what I need to know. Imagine you are me. Imagine you are the investor. Imagine you are in the shoes of the investor. What would you like to know? And imagine that you're busy, like you are and everybody else is. So something that is a chore and a generator of bad feelings on both sides can become the opposite, a relationship builder and a chance for strategically informed conversations, brainstorming, and creativity. Because once we both agree that the business is a problem-solving business, okay, then the question is, how good are we at problem-solving? And let's focus on that. But don't leave the revenue for the last line. Send it to me. I read it in 2 minutes. I got it. I love you. I can't wait for the next report.
I think we have already established that it's important to give regular updates, whether it's monthly or quarterly. Monthly, I prefer monthly. And I have seen a variety of reports from the company that I have invested, whether it's one page in different format, but obviously you hit the key points that should be in the report. But one thing that I think is almost like a best practice for me, and what I have seen some startups have done very successfully, they organized an hourly Zoom meeting and they invite the investors. Okay, then first of all, I go on a Zoom call and I see other investors there, and the CEO and founder makes the brief presentation. The benefit is that in real time, you get the feedback from your investors, And, and sometimes there is such thing as collective synergy of your investors, what they may come up with. And I've seen it in example of one startup, and I thought, I really like that approach.
You are creating a collective conversation amongst a group of people who are on different sides of the table, but both of whom really care about the success of the business. And the kinds of things that can happen there is an investor could say, oh, you need this kind of customer. Let me put you in touch with this lady because she's in the right end. It doesn't happen every time, but that's one thing that happens. Oh, you're having trouble understanding the economics of this retail industry. My friend worked in retail for 30 years. Why don't you connect with her? Because she can tell you what the world looks like from inside the industry so that you can better prepare to talk as an outsider of the industry. Look for connections, either ideas or contacts that can help you grow your business.
And proactively ask for help. That's you can
focused help, specific help. Yes.
And the other thing, it takes the onus from you. Now it's the responsibility for the investor to show up to the meeting, right? You offer them the opportunity. Sometimes, we all get busy. If you get the report, you may not read it, you may miss it, may read it later. That's why it's timely, okay? The investor doesn't show up, okay?
Anything, right? You get all the main things.
Right, you've done it right.
But that's an even more powerful quality control device than I had thought of. What often happens is that the investors will see the dog in the picture. They will see the problem and they will say, look, if we're going to take this approach to building the sales force, for example, it's going to take forever. Are there ways to create leverage in your sales process? There are two ways to react, and I've seen them both. One is, no, we're on a good track, you keep rolling. 5 months later, you say, we have to change our approach to building the sales force. So there is defensiveness when outsiders see the problem, they see you're not going to get there, and they make a suggestion. And I never tell anybody to do because it's not my startup, it's your startup. You're running the business. But my observation is, this is a very slow, labor-intensive process. It's going to have a high attrition rate of reps. We're not going to get there. Are there ways to leverage the sales process? The other response is, I don't know off the top of my head, but we're going to look for every source of leverage that they can put in. The result was 5 months later, they did it. They lost 5 months in the process. So you can make it in a meeting that people want to attend, and the more you listen and double check them, you don't have to believe them, you double check them, do your own calculations, and if they're onto something, act 5 months sooner rather than 5 months later. It does wonders for the business.
That's I've never actually heard of that, and that'd be great, because we're at Angel One, right? We're trying to form a community of our portfolio companies, to make them communicate with each other and exchange great contacts, their insights, and it seems to be working. So that's something that I would definitely want to propose.
Because it also creates community. Sometimes
exactly.
Investors just should show up because they can network with other investors.
Yep. Yeah.
We all social human
Great
beings. So you show up to a meeting, you just don't read a report.
Yep.
And another thing I want to circle back to, like the procedure, the routine, which is oftentimes boring. We say, hey, whenever the team reaches out and say, hey, let's jump on a Zoom call. Well, usually we don't have enough time to jump on all the Zoom calls that are being proposed. So what we do instead, we say, hey, this is the form that we have. Here you go. Fill it in. And then we can jump on a Zoom once we're better prepared. We know what questions to ask you. We know we can ask things that we're most interested in, and we're better prepared. The next thing after that meeting, after investment committee, what we usually do is we ask the startup founders, keep us updated, that you just mentioned. And this is where 2/3 of the startups are getting lost because of the discipline. So I think discipline is one of the key points that the startup founders, I'm talking mostly about Ukrainian startup founders because that's who we work with, that they have to learn how to be better at, to stick to it, because asking for a monthly update is not that complicated. You do it anyway. So just adjusting to your investors and showing that respect and build that trust, this is very important.
And I would just jump on one additional thing, because going back to the 3 months, 3 months is okay for a conventional company. For a startup, 3 months is forever.
Eternity.
Is forever.
I agree.
Everybody understands external marketing. Well, they don't, but let's say everybody understands external marketing. Nobody understands internal marketing. That report is for the investor. That report is for your team.
Yep.
When your team reads that report, and I hope that they are getting it, they're smart. They have their eyes open. Guess we didn't do that much in the month of April. Or, hot dog, look at this. This was great. 3 clients, second version. The team knows whether the machine is cooking or it's not cooking. And that has the potential to build an upward spiral. Because what happens, you send it to the investor, you have a meeting with the investor, the team knows it was good or bad, and you spend 15 minutes saying to the team, this is what we talked about with the investors, and we got a couple of leads, and we got a couple of connections, and this is what we're going to do about them. When your people are proud of what they did in April, they're going to do something even more extraordinary in May.
There's even one more thing that I thought about. When you write that report, you put your own thoughts on paper. You get organized yourself. Sometimes you as a founder, you wear multiple hats. You could be bogged into daily operations. And then all of a sudden you have to put your thoughts on paper, whether it's one-page report or a presentation, and you get organized and you see a better picture of where you are. So there's even that aspect. That comes in the benefit of
and
this
then you can
frequent
ask
reporting.
the right questions, because obviously every investor wants to invest not only money, but obviously they're ready to invest their expertise, their network and stuff like that. But how do they know what does the startup need if they don't ask?
Right.
Correct.
If they put their thoughts on the paper, if they give regular updates and they keep it truthful, not giving the stuff that's not there, and they
Which
just
is a
pretending.
must, I have to say, it's a must.
Exactly. So if there's nothing there, just say, okay, there's nothing there, and I have troubles, I cannot reach my goal, so can you help me?
Yeah.
Because that's what we're there for, not just make money, although that's important, but then how can we help you to help us make money?
So, let me pick up on that, put down your thoughts. For those of you who understand that speed is critical and actually find ways to apply it, here are the key points coming out of what we've done. Here are the key actions we have taken or will take, and here are the key questions and unresolved issues. And if you can't, to your point, put that on a piece of paper, you may not have as clear a view of your business as you need to have. I'll always read a page. When I see 4 pages coming at me.
But would you rather, as investors, would you rather go for a personal update from each startup, or is that okay if they have something, composed, by their team and you're okay with that?
Great question. I am okay with something by the team. I am not necessarily a fan of we have to meet every time, but I am a fan of the communication is so good and we are on the same page that if there is a need to meet, we look forward to it because we know we're going to be working on a well-moving machine, and we will be not fixing the wheels but trying to come up with ways for value added. And what the investor is really dying for is anything that feels like an asymmetric move. Anything that is clever, that is of the nature we invested $1 and we got back 20. These things exist, companies do them, you can study other companies that have done them. Why? Because The revenue generation is never enough. It sometimes is, but in general, it's not enough. Companies are always running out of money before they should, and learning to be asymmetric, finding that thing that produces the extraordinary returns, is as powerful as cutting the attrition and strengthening the word of mouth engine. It's part of the hidden economics of the startup, but most founders aren't thinking about that. Most founders aren't thinking about what's the asymmetric move. If we win this client in this industry, there will be 6 or 7 others that follow, okay? That's asymmetric for me, okay? You win Toyota, I can name you 6 other companies that will follow. Why? Because Toyota made that decision. So what is the thing that gives a disproportionate return? Because once you've done that, the investor immediately knows that the odds of survival and the odds of success have gone up. And maybe they'll do another one in 2 or 3 months.
If they do it like that, like you were just saying, I'm sure it would be ready to write another check, just like every other investor.
That's okay. I didn't think about that, but if you show that 2 or 3 times, the investors on your call will say, what would you do with another $500,000? Mm-hmm. Because you showed us that you know how to place it on things not that give a 20% return, but things that give a 15 to 20 times return.
Great point.